Ryan,
Tony, and Crystal.
We can't guarantee that you're gonna look great, but if you wanna stay in shape, well, you better hit the gymwits. That's right, man. Tell 'em.
welcome to the Gymwits podcast. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, a.k.a. Chef Sonic.
And I'm Tony Marinucci, aka Tips with Tony, a registered dietitian.
And we are the Gymwits. So I had a weird situation with like our memory is just terrible. And, you read all about it. And then I had this interesting situation happen this week. So
Are you able to remember what it is?
yeah, but clearly there are major details that I don't remember. So I have a friend, George, who trains with me. And I distinctly remember us not too long ago, maybe early in the summer, maybe at some point in the summer, I was telling him about a book that I read. I was reading the Expanse series at that point. And so I'd finished one of the books in the Expanse series. And I was telling him about the book. He's like, oh, you know what's a really good book? It's called The Three Body Problem. And he starts telling me all the information about this book. And it was a great series. And I had this memory. We're sitting on the next to the ring, on the edge of the ring. We're talking about this book, and he's recommending. He's Asian. I'll explain why that matters in this situation. So he tells me about it, and months go by, and I had it on my Amazon wish list, and I finally downloaded the audiobook. So I was training with him the other day. I'm like, hey, by the way, I ordered that book, I downloaded the book, The Three Body Problem. And listen to it. He's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, the book. You told me about the book. And I was like, you absolutely told me to download this book. He's like, no, I don't read. I only read nonfiction. I don't read fiction. I've never heard of this book. It must have been someone else. And so now I've been on this quest to figure out who recommended it, because I was sure it was him. And now the problem is I really hope that when I discover who it is, that the person's not Asian, because then it'll just be really racist of me to have just mixed him up with some. To be fair, my gym is half Asian, but still it'll be really racist of me if I'm oh no, I just swapped George out with another Asian person, especially since I know him so well. So I was just but I distinctly remember having that conversation with him that he told me about the book, and somebody did, but now I have to figure out who recommended this book to me.
No comment. Look, we've all done that. I've done that before, not necessarily with someone based on race, but
we don't know that for sure yet.
But perhaps I'm sure I've done that with ex-girlfriends.
Oh my god, I've totally done that with guys. I'm not gonna lie.
Where I was like, remember this? I was oh no, and you play it off. And
literally, no, that happened to me a couple months ago. I was convinced this guy told me his birthday was the same date as my cousin, but I'm all right. Transparency. I'm single. I date. Oh, I go on lots of dates. Okay, so it was totally a different guy, and I was convinced it was him, and that he was lying to me about his birthday. I'm like, why would you lie to me about your birthday? And then I realized I was wait, maybe it wasn't that one. Whoops.
Yeah,
that happens.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll keep you guys updated. I've been asking just not random people. I've been asking everybody, and every time it's an Asian student, I'm like, please say no, please say no, please. I'm like, yes, okay, it's not you. I can check that person off. So we'll find out if stay tuned to see if I'm racist or
now.
Not.
So here's the thing with George. What would George say if you were look? It was someone else who was Asian.
Oh no, he'd laugh about it. No.
Okay.
Yeah. No. He's
so maybe you
he's
should
the
just
guy.
tell him. So maybe you should tell him that it was, even if it's not. Just to, just make it work. Yeah. So I have a question for you, Ryan, and maybe for you as well, Tony. Have you ever priced someone out or that wanted either to work with you or do a session or something that was either not at a great time or you didn't like the person or whatever it is, and you almost wanted to make it so clear that I don't want to do this, or so you made the price very, very high for something, thinking that someone would just not buy it, and maybe they did or maybe they didn't. But have you ever done that before? Just completely priced someone out, given it a ridiculous rate for what you wanted.
Yeah, I've done that twice, and I've maybe done it more, but I did it. There was one person who wanted to train with me, and they were clearly they were just a problem person. I'm sure you both dealt with it dealing with clients. I just could tell every bit of everything I got from them that they were going to be trouble. They were going to want to cancel. They were going to want to negotiate stuff. They were going to not show up. They were going to blame me for stuff. It was just everything about it was wrong. So it wasn't that I kind of priced them out. I gave them a rate that was just look, you're not going to take this. And then when I told them, they tried to negotiate, and I was like, no, I'm sorry, that's it. Like, so blah, 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 price integrity, whatever. And then I was like, all right, they're not. And then they emailed me like, all right, let's get started.
Oh,
and
so they bought it.
Yeah, and I did the same thing with the 3D printing job. Like someone was like,
So then I guess it was worth your trouble. You
I guess,
you wanted to make it worth your trouble.
Yeah.
Because I have a big thing, like I'm all about like keeping my reputation, and if someone's not going to show up for calls and they're not going to take my program seriously, I don't care how much you pay.
I mean, so I guess it's a little different because since I don't have a program like that, it's more like you're paying for the hour with me. Like all the extra stuff is kind of ancillary. So in that way, I'm not as concerned about it affecting my reputation unless the person's running around the city, saying, but yeah. So in that way, for me, it's like there was, it was just like, it was just a painful hour. And then, or anytime I worked with them, it was like painful to work with them just because I just like the minutes dragged on. And then there was a 3D printing job that I had fairly recently where it was the same kind of thing. It was really difficult. Like with 3D printing, like, it's some materials, like it's all plastic, but they're different kinds of plastics, and each one has a different quality and different melting point and different things. And so this person wanted a job that was a really long job, and it was a really difficult thing to print, a really finicky kind of material. And so they needed something, and they gave me asked me about this object, and I was like, look, I thought I sat there, I did like kind of did math, like what would be the price that would allow make me even think about doing it. And I just threw out this price, whatever it was I came up with, plus like 20%. And they were like, okay, I just need it right away. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. And thankfully, actually, the job went flawlessly. But yeah. Why? So I'm guessing you have a story.
No, I was just wondering. I have a few instances as my schedule starts to fill up, which is a good thing. And I'm glad. I'm starting to now have to pick and choose what I can do. I used to just take every job that I could just to either build up a client base, make as much money as possible. So now I'm like thinking, well, you've talked about it before when it comes to, are you going to go to the gym? Because if you spend an hour going to the gym or working out, now that's an hour that you don't get to sleep, or it's an hour that you don't get to just watch TV, or just something else that has some sort of value. So I'm considering that if I have to take a gig that involves me driving 40 minutes each way and spending 2 hours or whatever it is, I have to factor that in to my life. Is it worth the money, and what would really make it worth it?
Yeah.
So it's interesting how that concept that you've talked about quite often is now sort of rearing its face. So, but you have switching it up a little bit, you have a couple studies for us, right?
Oh, well, first, Tony, you've got some
news. That's right. Tony has some big news. What's the news, though?
Okay, so when you guys are listening to
So what are those studies, Ryan?
Chances are when you're listening to this podcast, I would have officially resigned from my full-time job and investing all of my time and energy into my own business full-time, and I'm really excited about it.
Yay.
Well, what percent excited? What percent nervous?
So there's like a slight nervousness because it's like the unknown, right? You're going from a consistent paycheck to not knowing what's going to come to working. I mean, we actually have an interview coming up with someone who's an entrepreneur that works from home, and he says it's lonely. It's like I'm a people person. So I'm going from working with a community of people to now literally working from home every day by myself. So like there's nervousness in that aspect, like dealing with the transition. But I think a big part of it is I'm really excited. There's something in my gut that just told me to go for it. Financially, it almost doesn't even make any sense. But at the same time, I do trust and believe in myself, and I have a purpose here on earth to really provide value to others. And I don't think I can wholeheartedly do that while juggling everything. And I think I've slowly, like you guys know, when we first met, I was working like 4 different jobs, and I've slowly kind of cut back and then invested more. And I think I'm really just ready to just take that leap.
Gotta take that leap at some point.
Yeah,
and I think
congratulations.
Fortunately, I think it's tough to balance like other jobs and really truly being an entrepreneur. It's like really challenging balance,
and
because it's so easy to fall back.
But it's slightly exhausting. And I do believe like I am, luckily because I take care of my nutrition and I exercise, I do have a lot of energy and I'm able to keep up with it. But I don't think I should have to. Like I don't think I literally, my days are from 5 a.m. to at least 10 p.m. every day, and it gets really exhausting.
Dating is a job too. You know what I mean?
I can say that for another podcast.
I unfortunately don't have to deal with it anymore. Neither does Ryan. But yeah, I know what it's all about. Especially.
Well, I'm done dating too. Like honestly, at this point, I really am just investing my time and energy into my business. But yeah, I mean, it is exhausting. So I'm just gonna eliminate that one.
Yeah. Yeah. At least
it's tiring.
At least until like you
Obviously,
don't.
if I can't remember birthdays, it's
Yeah.
I should probably slow down.
So
Anyways.
congratulations, and
Thank you.
yeah, no, I think it'll be great. Like once now that you can kind of all your efforts can kind of go into that, I think it'll make some like huge dividends.
Absolutely.
So all right, so we got a couple interesting studies. Let's see what you guys think about it. I think I throw these out to generate discussion. Sometimes it generates a lot, sometimes a little. You weren't here last week when we recorded. But we had a fun discussion that went all over the place based on one of the studies. So we'll see how this goes if it goes anywhere. So first one was published in the New York Times, or I should say there's an article in the New York Times is where I found it from today, I think, or yesterday. But it was published in the Journal of Nature, or published in Nature Medicine, and it basically deals with how exercise keeps the mind sharp. So kind of we've known for a long time that there are cognitive benefits to exercise, but I think never really been sure why. And I think at some point they've been able to kind of pinpoint a hormone called irisin, which seems to be produced during exercise, and it seems to kickstart kind of mechanisms relating to energy and metabolism. And so the kind of idea is that the exercise helps the brain by increasing irisin. So basically the way that, and looking at kind of brain, like test brain tissue at brain banks, they found that brains free of dementia were high in this irisin, and brains of people who died with Alzheimer's was barely detectable. So this study was done with mice. And so kind of you had two categories of mice. You had healthy mice, and then you had mice that were bred to develop rodent Alzheimer's, which just sucks. It must suck being a mouse. Like you just don't know what you're gonna draw, what card you're gonna draw. You're gonna be like a pest to somebody. You're gonna be in a hospital or test setting or whatever.
Well, they'll have the last laugh because they'll be here a lot longer than we will.
I guess so. Yeah. So basically, and then there's this cocktail that would inhibit irisin. So that if it inhibited, then it would kind of help. It would give, they would then start to develop those. So what they found, so part of this, with some of the healthy mice, they injected them with this kind of cocktail that would block irisin. And those mice, after they had it, started to show signs of dementia. Then they took the Alzheimer's bred mice and they injected them with irisin, and they started to increase, like they started to show improvements in kind of in memory and in passing certain memory tests. And then you had another group of mice that were healthy mice who exercised. So they were healthy and they exercised, and they treated them with the cocktail to block the irisin, and they were actually able to fight off the effects of this cocktail much better than the ones that didn't exercise. And so I guess the idea is that the exercise triggers this irisin release, which then helps to protect the brain. So the moral of the story is, as we've already known and we're learning more and more, and I'm sure there'll be more studies to confirm this, is exercise doesn't just help your body, but it helps your brain. And the more you exercise, the less likely you are to deal with some of these cognitive issues.
Was it the types of exercise that they mentioned?
The mice swam for an hour.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Nice.
That was it.
So,
but yeah, so I'm sure over time we'll learn more and more about what types of exercise.
But it brings about another question, and it's which is classic, drug medicine industry is, we know that exercise is great for maintaining your cognitive ability, especially for older adults. And probably, and just good in general, right? Like when you're exercising, you're thinking better. But are the drug companies going to jump on this and try to create a medication to help? In order to try to help.
This is an interesting part
deal with dementia and Alzheimer's and all those types of things.
So this is an interesting part of the study is that it wasn't. So the mice that exercised were better at producing the irisin. So it's not about creating a drug. I think at least for this one, and what my takeaway
isn't about
the takeaway from it is not about that's another part. So yes, maybe that is a way to treat Alzheimer's or dementia. That wasn't the takeaway though from this study. The more the takeaway is exercise, because it will help. It pays dividends down the road. It helps with the production of the of something that does help you to fight it off. So sure, but yeah, look, those are some of the most common, not the most common diseases, but they're common, they're prevalent in our society. So definitely drug companies are gonna try to treat that. I wouldn't, I'd be more concerned about how they do, or the amount of, or the fact they'll probably charge like $18,000 a pill if they can. But
sure.
But that aside, like I wouldn't be concerned about if there was a drug that protected against it, but that's not kind of the moral of this.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. Well, we know what the moral is. So
what?
Keep exercising.
Keep exercising. And actually, another interesting one. So this deals with Parkinson's, and again, treating Parkinson's with exercise. So this study was dealing with drills, and damn it, I don't have the study offhand, so I'll post that in the show notes. But basically, with Parkinson's, it's a progressive neurodegenerative condition, and basically deals with kind of the death of dopamine-producing nerve cells, which kind of help to control motor function, control movement. So there's no cure. People aren't really sure why it happens, and it's progressive. It's not, it progresses at different rates for different people, but it's one direction for now, and so managing it is the best thing that you can kind of hope for right now. Hopefully, at some point we come up with a cure, but it is one of the most heavily researched diseases. But at this point, if you're diagnosed with that, management is the key. And so this is one showing how exercise can help, and it kind of makes sense, and so it's kind of good to see a study that kind of bears this out. So basically they studied two groups, and one group was kind of a control group, so they just kind of went about their normal normal activities, normal lives, kind of medicinal intervention. The second group was called a supervised high intensity sensory motor agility exercise program, which is basically an agility program, and now they went through a 3-week introductory period or initial phase, and then they followed them for 2 years after that. I think they checked them like 3 months, 6 months, a year, 18 months, 2 years, after, and they measured kind of 8 different outcomes relating to movement and quality of life, and basically what they found was that after 3 weeks, the people that did the program had what they quoted as robust and favorable improvement to all of those 8 outcomes, or those 8 measurements. And then so what they saw after 2 years was they maintained those improvements, but they didn't improve on the measurements. So it seems like what where the control group showed a steady decline in all the 8 measures. So basically, kind of in this case, the agility training was at a minimum able to kind of help them to fight off the decline. And so again, when you're dealing with something that is working with motor control, something about that agility program is able to help stimulate the system in a way that allowed them to, at a minimum, not show a huge decline. Now the study was pretty small; it was, I think, only maybe 20 people per group, so it wasn't a huge study. But again, goes to show the importance of exercise in treating something as serious as Parkinson's. And so if you have that, and also that I guess different exercise modalities will help different things. So, agility training is going to be useful for this, but maybe it's not useful for, Alzheimer's or whatever it is, like when we're dealing with kind of exercise. So when it comes to programming, that's why I've said in the past, trainers are not unnecessary, but our value a lot of times is accountability and just being a body there to help somebody. Where you see true value is when you have a trainer that knows how to work with a special population. And in that case, they can help work with that population and work with modalities that will help them and not hinder them or just be kind of have no effect.
Yeah.
And just so that people know, Ryan is referring to a question that was that we asked, and we actually discussed a little bit in the upcoming interview that you guys are about to hear about the Parkinson's. I've actually known a few people with Parkinson's, and yes, doing agility training and also boxing is really good, and apparently those are those types of exercise programs have been known to really help and pay dividends for people suffering from Parkinson's.
Yeah, so that's it. That was it for the studies for this week. I don't know if there's much to add except I think the theme this week wasn't intentional. It's more, the value of exercise for your life, just in staving off and or treating, a variety of diseases that doesn't immediately come to mind. But that's why it's really important to work out. We do it often to look better, but, it really does pay off down the road. All right, cool. Well, I guess that's it for this, so we can go into our interview. Why don't you lead us in?
Oh, we'll let Tone lead it in because it's her friend.
Yeah.
And it was a great interview. It was really cool.
Yeah. So this is a nutrition coach, Justin Murphy. He's the owner of I Coach Nutrition, and he has some really valuable insight about just general individualized care with nutrition, and then particularly talks about those in the CrossFit space. So we're excited to have him. So without further ado, here's our interview.
Hey, everyone. We are here with Justin Murphy. What's going on, Justin?
What's going on? Thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Absolutely. Welcome. Yeah, welcome to the gym. Welcome to being on the Gymwits. Justin is a nutrition coach and also has competed in CrossFit and worked with a lot of CrossFitters. So we're going to dive into that. But before we get to the meat of the discussion, we always ask, what is your background in fitness? How did you get into it initially? If you played sports growing up, or maybe some people find the weight room because they didn't like sports. What's your story?
Yeah, great question. So I kind of grew up my whole entire life playing sports. Ever since I was probably 3 or 4 years old, I had, some type of ball in my hand, basketball, football, baseball. And so kind of through childhood, I grew up playing baseball. That was kind of my thing. I played in select leagues, and, at some points I was playing 160 games in a year. And so as I got into middle school and high school, I played everything from soccer, basketball, football, powerlifting, track, cross country, skateboarding, and really was pretty involved in sports growing up. And then from there in high school, I was fortunate enough to receive a football scholarship. So I went and played college football. And then after that, I kind of fell into the CrossFit space, and that's when I started competing in CrossFit. And so through that time, I kind of fell in love with, nutrition, fitness, kind of the whole health industry, and really was kind of trying to decide, did I want to go the physical therapy route, or did I want to go the nutrition route, or did I want to go the college kind of strength coach route? And then, as I am today, I own a online nutrition coaching company, and so kind of went all in on that.
Nice. Just a quick question. Is it possible for someone to make a living at CrossFit besides either owning a franchise or being a coach? Is there a competition where you can make a living doing that? Has it evolved to that point yet?
Yeah, I definitely think that there's some guys out there that are really doing well. If you think about Jason Khalipa, he was somebody that was the 2008 CrossFit Games champion, and since then competed in the sport for I think 7 or 8 years, and then now he owns multiple locations all throughout California, and then even corporate partnerships as well. But his gyms are called NC Fit. And yeah, he's one of the most successful entrepreneurs out there in the fitness space right now. So yeah, I definitely think that it's possible. I think that, the old school model and kind of how CrossFit started, way back in the day, it's definitely evolved. You can't just go open up some little shack on the side of the road and, invite all your friends and have a thriving business. You really have to invest and really kind of build out something that's pretty legit to be able to separate yourself from all of the other gyms, because there's 15,000 affiliates now.
No. I guess, Justin, is your question more or less are they getting paid?
Yeah, that's actually what I was curious about. Is there prize money? Can you actually make a living being a professional CrossFitter?
Got it. I'm sorry. On the professional, like,
but you had a great answer too, because I think I'm sure there are people that are would consider either being a CrossFit coach or owning a franchise or owning a gym, a similar style gym. So that was great information as well.
Yeah, no. So with the athlete side of it, like when I was competing, I was fortunate enough to I got sponsored by a company called FitAid. And they were amazing. Like they did a lot of great things for the athletes in terms of like paying for us to like travel to different competitions and paying for our competitions and like sending us all of this like supplements and all of that type of stuff. But like there was only a few athletes that were actually getting like paid like money. These days through sponsors and different things like that, like for instance like Matt Frazier or Rich Froning. Rich Froning, he got like a $7 million contract with Reebok. But he's like and so like Matt Frazier has won $275,000. That's what like first place for winning the CrossFit Games gets. So he's won that like the last few years. He has sponsors. So, like some of these guys, like some of the best in the world, like probably I would say maybe like the top 10 male and female or top 5 male and female, like consistently every single year are the ones that are maybe making the big bucks, if you will. But the sport is definitely not, it's not like the NFL or something like that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Interesting.
So as a nutrition coach, I guess, and an entrepreneur, like what have you found to be the biggest kind of challenges for you kind of starting your own business in an industry and field that's fairly crowded?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest piece is, obviously it's just kind of it's definitely a lonely journey, right? You're kind of alone, if you will. You're working from home. And so for me, like ever since I started my business, like the cool thing about it is like I hired a mentor from the very beginning, which kind of got me into like a mentorship, like a mastermind group. And so I put myself in the environment and surrounded myself with the people to allow me to kind of, level up, if you will, and kind of push me to be successful and to keep staying consistent towards my goals. So that's definitely like a huge recommendation of mine and like other people that we work with. Is just making sure that like you find some type of mentorship, whether it's paid or through podcasts and audiobooks and whatever, but like, start to seek out those mentors in your life to help move you forward.
And what's the process when someone works with you? Like kind of how do you go about, kind of bringing on a new client and kind of integrating them into your own kind of systems?
Yeah. So, I think one thing that we started doing like from the very beginning was this kind of idea of like individualized coaching, which is, it's the farthest thing from like, hey, here's a meal plan or here's a template, good luck, or here's your macros, good luck. It's so much more than that. But I think that a lot of people have kind of, like individualized coaching is now like what most people do. And so what we've kind of started to formulate and like develop now, we call it like basically creating your identity map. And what this idea, what this kind of philosophy is just simple idea of like, every single one of us, like from the first day that we came onto this earth, like we've been influenced by, our parents, the school, the government, the, religion, food, all of these different components that have kind of made up our life. And so through this identity mapping process, we start to identify, well, let's take you, when we first start working with a client, like, how do we take you through the process of like I really need to assess and take you all the way back to like childhood, right? Like I need to learn as much about you as I possibly can so that I can, help and educate you and equip you with the tools that you need to be successful going forward for the rest of your life.
Now, and I totally agree with you, and I completely understand that concept. And that I'm a dietitian and nutrition coach as well. And when I try to go there with my clients, it definitely takes a long time for them to really open up. So, like, how do you get people to, one, understand that they're not just working with a nutrition coach, and it's a lot deeper than that if they really want to get to solve their problems? And, like, do you find that there are barriers to that, and, like, then how do you break them down?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that like everybody's different. Like I definitely wouldn't say that like everybody just completely opens up and tells me their life story like day one. I think like for us, probably like in that first month or two or three, like, we're really just trying to like build rapport with that client and like get to know them and like, really just like get them to like trust us and make sure that like, we're fostering like a friendship, a relationship, rather than just like giving out like some prescription or whatever. But like I said, it's a lot easier said than done, right? Like obviously there's going to be those roadblocks. There's going to be those things that we're going to have to work really hard to overcome. And so I think that like the mindset aspect of it, I always joke, I'm like, most people come to us for like nutrition coaching, but like really it's like the mindset that's like developed along the way. Like that's where the value comes. And so we look into like a whole bunch of different aspects, and it's different for everybody, but it's really just about meeting that person where they are and like, slowly but surely, like, helping and educating them and equipping them with the tools to be successful. And also, recognizing that, look, like, it's okay. You're not going to be perfect. I'm not asking you to be perfect. Like, we really just probably need to start with like the one thing, like your number one issue. And then, like just go from there. I think like this kind of habit-based coaching approach is definitely something that kind of allows us to play the long game and creates long-term success.
Yeah. So when you're dealing with new clients, I see it, often there are kind of gaps in knowledge or gaps in or disconnect between kind of goals, expectations, reality. So what are the most common, maybe, let's say one or two most common things that you encounter that, gaps that you do have to plug with your patients or clients before you get them kind of going into a program that's going to be successful long-term?
Yeah, great question. I think from like the very beginning and like, obviously most people come to us with a goal, some type of goal, right? But I think like the biggest missing link is like they haven't taken the time to really dive deep into like the why behind why they actually want to like accomplish that goal, right? Yeah. So, I think that, and that's really a hard concept for a lot of people to like understand because they've probably never gone through it before. Most people don't really like write their goals for the next year, like plan any of that stuff. And so like when you start going through a lot of these like personal development activities and you kind of help people, obviously with nutrition, which then kind of translates into other areas of life, like productivity, and kind of building success in every pillar of life. So we kind of talk about like, body being balance in business, which is something from like Garrett White, but it's phenomenal because people come to you with these body goals and then you can help them kind of expand into these other pillars as well. So to answer your question, sorry for kind of going off on a tangent. But yeah, I think that's a big one, like not identifying and not building up like a strong enough why to help you overcome all of the struggles that you're going to come across along the way. And then the other thing is just like consistency, right? Like it's getting people to like, stay consistent with the goals that we're setting for them. And so I think so many people these days, like being 2019 and having access to all of these different things, everybody has this kind of like all or nothing mentality where it's like, I'm going to stay extremely strict and I'm going to change all of these things in my life. And like, sure, you can do it for like 30 days, but then you like fall off. So it's like getting people again to like understand that like, look, you didn't just like gain 50, 100 pounds or whatever, like overnight. Like this took time and like, it's going to take time for us to transform you, physically, mentally, and so on and so forth to really allow you to start living your best life.
So I have a question about value, because for all three of us and for you work, you're working for yourself, and you have to sell yourself. And now I'm not in the fitness profession, but I'm in a very similar profession. In a weird way, I'm a musician and I have to sell my services. So it's just so common that this happens where someone will want my service or perhaps want a trainer or dietitian, nutritionist, and see that it's expensive. right, that to continue doing this, week after week, month after month, is really expensive. And then they look at there's some new fancy book that they have to that you only have to pay for once, or a program that seems very advertised on TV that seems to give you fast results. How do you tell someone about your value? How, yes, you could buy a book, you could do some program that some buzzy program, but that the value in having a coach, a personalized coach, week after week, month after month, even though it's more expensive, that's you're getting the bang for your buck.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a phenomenal question, and I think it's one that we always challenge ourselves with as entrepreneurs. I think for us, the biggest piece that we try to kind of get across is that, information, I mean, my God, it's 2019, right? The information is out there everywhere for free, right? The magic is in the application. And so kind of the way we market that and prove that is we have a VIP member site that is completely free. We've built it, we spent money on building it. It has all these resources and we just give it away for free. Because again, it's just information, right? The ebooks, so anything, all the content that's created, right? All of this social media content that's created, everybody just gives that out for free. And that's the information. So like you said, hiring a coach, hiring a mentor, what that does is it allows you to really collapse time, and it allows you to really get individualized application. Right, it educates you, one, right, so that you can eventually do it on your own, right, and then they equip you with the tools to be successful long term. So we talk about with nutrition, it's we want to equip you and help you build your nutritional tool belt. So that's really the biggest piece on it is you're right. I mean, when people come to work with you, they're paying they're paying that top tier price because the information, it just hasn't gotten them to where they want to be. It comes a time in your life, right, where it's if you were going to do it, you had already done it by now, right? And so eventually you pay to help people, either hold you accountable or educate you or, help you network or whatever that missing link is between A and B to get you to that goal. Eventually, you figure out that if you invest in yourself, right, if you make that payment, you pay attention. And, I'm a huge believer in coaches, and that every coach needs a coach, and really everybody in this world could benefit from a good coach.
Yeah, it's a common comment or question that I get from people is, are you afraid that with, the prevalence of apps and internet and everything like that it'll render kind of your job as a trainer or fitness professional obsolete? And yeah, I think the information's there, and most good, professionals aren't going to try to hide that. It's you're not hiding that. Look, if anybody can go online or use an app and get reasonably good advice, and unless there's a direct medical issue, you can get everything you need online, but that's not the value of having one of us around. The value is in the coaching and is in applying that to the person and tailoring something based on our experience and knowledge that will be successful. And it's in the coaching, and sometimes it's just in the babysitting and accountability part. But yeah, it's I think it's all out there, and I don't think anybody tries to, or anyone really should try to hide it, because you can go online and find out almost everything you need to know about getting in shape or eating well.
Wary of anything that says, "Oh, we have the secret
to
how you lose fat." Or
well, honestly, that's something. One approach. I had a friend who did this. I remember I was hanging out with him one day, and he's a physical therapist, and for him, he charges a lot of money, and he doesn't take medical insurance. So his guys, everyone that comes to him, is paying a good deal of money. And the way he works with them is he tries to, he's aware of that. So he tries to work with people, at a limited time and kind of arm them with the information and arm them with the exercises to kind of work with him a little bit, and then they're on their way. But what he'll do in his consultation is if somebody's not sold on working with him because of the price, he always will then arm them with questions and information to ask other people. So it's if you're going to a practitioner, at a regular, just kind of a, potentially generic facility, ask them certain questions, and here's what you need to know. And if you get X, Y, and Z answer, be wary. And if you don't, then this is somebody you can work with. And I think that, being transparent is a huge part of people trusting you. And even if they don't sign up right away. They'll come back.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, right? The buy, the know, like, and trust factor, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And at the end of the day, I think we all are in our profession because we genuinely want to help people. And if you can let people know that you really can solve their problems, then they recognize that the money is a return on their investment, and it's exactly that. It's an investment in themselves. It's not an expense. An expense is something you write off.
Yeah.
An investment is something you get back. You get value in return. And so if we're good coaches, we're doing a good job explaining that to them, that this is literally going to change their life for the better. It's going to enhance their life. It's going to improve their life. And there really is no amount of dollars that is worth your health and happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And really, like, if it was that analytical person, right, and they did want to break it down, it's like, okay, well, like, let's add up all the money that you've spent up into this point on XYZ, right? And then, like, if this is that solution for you, then it's 100% worth it, you know?
Yeah. So let's just shift gears a little bit. I wanted to talk about CrossFit because we, as big as CrossFit's been, we haven't talked all that much about it on our podcast. So I guess the first question for you is, I guess maybe explain to people what CrossFit is. I mean, at this point, most people have heard of it. Most people know what it is. But maybe explain kind of what's the value in CrossFit as kind of a modality for people to participate in. Whether, let's say, we'll start with, let's say, just the average person, and then we'll get into a little bit of as far as being a CrossFit athlete and what that entails, and kind of how that differs maybe from somebody who's just joining regular gym.
Yeah, absolutely. So so CrossFit, originally it was kind of defined as like constantly varied functional movement performed at high intensity. And, you hear that, and like the first two pieces, they might sound okay, but then that high intensity piece really scares a lot of people. And so what's really interesting actually is this year is the year that CrossFit finally shifted away from being primarily a sport. They actually got rid of the CrossFit regionals. And so now the way that they go about the CrossFit Games process is completely different, and their marketing is completely different. You'll see videos like coming across of like 70, 80-year-old like grandpas and grandmas like doing like squats, aka like squatting down to sit into their chair and standing back up. So when you think about the evolution like of basically like your general population, right? And then these like elite level athletes, CrossFit can truly be applied to anybody, and it's universally scalable. So the concept of CrossFit that's really cool is like, I could take a workout and I could put Matt Frazier, who's the fittest man on earth, and have him do the workout. And then I could have an 85-year-old grandpa do the same exact workout, but for example, if the workout was like 21, 15, 9 thrusters and pull-ups, which is called Fran, it's a really, really popular CrossFit workout. So Matt would do that. He would do regular pull-ups, and he would do what's called like butterfly pull-ups, and then his weight on the thrusters would be at 95-pound barbell. Okay. But what I could do for the grandpa is I could scale that, and I could have them do maybe, like I could scale down the reps to something lower. So maybe they just do like 12, 9, 6. And then I could have them do like, just sit down onto a box and stand back up, and maybe have like a PVC pipe in their hand to then press over their head. And that could be their thruster. And then I could take the row or the pull up, and I could change that to something that's easier as well. So really the point of that is like just to illustrate that, yes, CrossFit's kind of universally scalable, and really anybody can do it. You just have to make sure that obviously like, you kind of have the right coaching and how to scale appropriately. So
being a cynic, I wonder, like, cause I've always seen, CrossFit as I guess as marketed as being as intense as it kind of its reputation is that shift away more of a marketing thing, or is it legitimate? Like, you know, like kind of, because for me, I almost think like, oh, well, it's just that shift because you do want to scale for other people, so you can make a little, you know, so you, as a brand, you open yourself up to more people. But is it more? Do you think there's that value? And then I guess if you do scale back, you know, as far as modifications, doesn't it just become like a standard kind of a normal everyday workout?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, you know, honestly, I don't know enough to really know, but like, I mean, I think like one thing I did notice, and this was obviously me working with athletes, is that when they, you know, most people that were like really, really competitive, like die hard, you know, I was training like 3 or 4 hours a day just to make it to regionals. So like when they took regionals away this year, that wiped out a lot of that like competitive population, except for the really, really top tier athletes. So it did kind of shift, you know, a lot of those regional athletes now shifted their mindset into, okay, well, how do I like start my career now? Right? Like I can't keep competing in this. There's nothing in it for me and things like that. So I think that it definitely is kind of shifting more in that way. But then, you know, yeah, at the same time, I think, yes, the more you scale, the more it can end up being like, you know, this type of corrective exercise or whatever. The community aspect of it, like that would be the thing that is like most important, and that would always be true, is, you know, the community of CrossFit, like being able to, you know, come into a gym and like, you know, get, you know, welcomed by name and like have like friends that have now become like more like family. Like that's the big piece. You don't find in like a Globo gym.
Yeah. No, so now, as an athlete, I guess, what are the options for people without regionals now? Like, what do you do if you are somebody who is a high level athlete who, you know, maybe a year or two ago would be competing and doing well in the, like for you, like, because I think you mentioned that you've placed. What would you do if you wanted to continue to compete in CrossFit?
Yeah, so I kind of got lucky, I guess. Like right when I graduated school with my nutrition degree was like basically right when I decided to quit competing in CrossFit. And so that was like, you know, obviously a few years before all of this happened. But really the options now are like, you know, if you're not competing at that CrossFit Games level, which is where you're having like sanctioned events, for example. So like this weekend they have a really big CrossFit competition in Miami. It's called Wadapalooza. And they have like an online qualifier for it. And then from there, there's like invite only. And it's this huge, huge competition. And so like the top however many athletes from that qualify automatically for the CrossFit Games. But like this is like the most elite athletes in the world, right? So if you're not at that, then, you know, you're talking about just going to local competitions really. And it just kind of becoming more of like a hobby for you.
So I think the big question that I'm certainly wondering, and perhaps a lot of our listeners at this point are wondering, so for the fairly high-level CrossFitter to maybe the elite CrossFitter, clearly nutrition is going to be very important. And oftentimes when we, you know, think of seeing a nutrition coach or dietitian, we think of, you know, we're trying to lose weight. That's what most people think of. But performance is another huge aspect of nutrition. So, and once again, everyone is different, but what are some important things to think about when fueling yourself for fairly high-level CrossFit, or perhaps a sort of an event or something that's very similar to that?
Yeah, so I think with you know, the biggest kind of issue that you see in the CrossFit space with nutrition is that, you know, like and it's gotten a little bit better now. Like I think there's definitely more education in the space, but like, you know, for a lot of people, we kind of went through this like paleo phase, you know, like Whole30, you know, like we went through a lot of like lower carbohydrate diets that were popularized. And so when you come into this CrossFit setting, which is kind of more of a performance setting, you know, at least kind of up into this point, we'll see how the transition carries out. But, you know, it's a glycolytic setting, you know, and so, you know, glycolysis, right, like basically fueled by carbohydrates. And so you would see people that were coming into the gym on these low carbohydrate diets, and, you know, maybe at first they might be okay just because maybe they were new to CrossFit. and they were having that adaptation. But like later on, like they would actually start to experience issues because they weren't fueling themselves properly. So the lack of like carbohydrates in the diet, and like appropriate like fueling, pre and post workout strategies. And also like the people that were actually working out a lot, like, they simply just weren't even consuming enough calories because, they were used to maybe eating X amount while they're at, 24-hour fitness working out and like resting 3 minutes between sets. And now they're over here doing these like hardcore CrossFit workouts. And so just the fuel demands, the fuel requirements are just, it's just way more than what they're used to. So yeah, I think that was a big, big thing that we've seen. And I think, we still see today, whether it's under eating or, specifically like under eating carbohydrates.
Yeah, I think the big thing I definitely see is overtraining and under eating. So what signs do you find that are very apparent if someone is either overtraining or under eating or not eating enough carbohydrates? What should they be looking out for?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do this thing where we track kind of like, biofeedback. And so essentially it's just kind of looking into, your sleep, your energy levels, your digestive, your performance, your recovery, your hunger. We even look into like sex drive and mood and different factors like that. And so whether it's a daily assessment or a weekly assessment, just like making sure that like, one, before you start CrossFit, or if you're already currently doing CrossFit, like just assess all of these things. Like, are you having issues like falling asleep at night, or are you constantly waking up throughout the night? Are you constantly like getting injured? Like, are you always sore? Like, do you feel like you're not recovering well? Do you feel like you're just getting absolutely like crushed in workouts and like not progressing in workouts, like hitting new PRs? Those are probably like some of the things, just to list a few.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know that nutritionists and dietitians always want you to get your get your nutrients, get all from real food, whole foods, and that's the healthy route. But are there any supplements that actually are a supplement that can help a little bit when doing something as intense as CrossFit?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think the big piece with like supplements, especially like in a performance type of environment like CrossFit, is that it really just depends on like who we're talking about and like how intense they're going. So I'll give you an example. Like for the high level CrossFit athletes we're working with, like regional games athletes, like Logan Collins, for instance, he was taking in, 5,000-6,000 calories a day. Like, he wasn't doing that eating paleo, I promise you that, right? Almost, I would say 2/3, maybe even half of his overall intake was supplementation, right? And so that's through like protein and carbohydrate supplements. And, like that would never be something that like general population we would recommend. But when you're competing at such a high level, when you're sitting here training 5-6 hours a day plus, like when you're at the CrossFit games, like it's crazy. Like people just don't understand. But going back to like general pop, like, I would say, yes, you can definitely get benefit from, doing like a protein carbohydrate shake after a workout, like because it is glycolytic and like it can definitely help you kind of make that shift. Like if you've ever done CrossFit before, it's high intensity, right? So you do a workout and you're like laying on your back after the workout, like you're kind of like shaking, right? And so like that's like very, very sympathetic, like fight or flight. And when you drink that protein carbohydrate shake, so like 25 grams of carbs, 25 grams of protein after the workout, it really kind of helps you make that shift from like sympathetic to parasympathetic. Like you can truly like feel it. But like, again, if you don't have like all of like the whole foods and nutrition and like all of those things figured out, like I wouldn't even be wasting your time with supplementation.
So early on, kind of in the days of CrossFit, I think one of the major kind of issues with it seemed to be like kind of a high prevalence of injuries. And I think a lot of that was less to do with CrossFit, as a modality itself being wrong, and more to do with people, just kind of maybe improper coaching combined with like kind of the high intensity with heavier weights. But do you find if it's done properly, is there still kind of a higher risk of injury just because of the nature of the sport and the activity. And then the second question, kind of connected to it, sort of, is if you could explain kind of what rhabdomyolysis is, and I know it's kind of jokingly called like the CrossFit disease, but kind of why it happens, and how to avoid it if you are doing something like CrossFit, especially if you're just kind of starting out.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So to answer the first question, going back, I think as far as like becoming affiliated with CrossFit, right? To be able to like promote as a CrossFit gym, like when it first started, like I think it was like $500 to become an affiliate. So that means any Joe Schmo can go from off the street, get a level 1 certification, and then pay $500 a month or $500 a year to get affiliated and call itself a CrossFit gym, right? So yeah, you're gonna have tons of injuries. I think last time I checked, I think it was like around $3,500 for an affiliate, which still is not a lot, and that's why you'll still see injury to this day. So I just kind of make a comparison as like, look, there's good nutrition coaches, there's bad nutrition coaches, there's good RDs, there's bad RDs, there's good PTs, there's bad PTs, there's good CrossFit gyms, there's bad CrossFit gyms. Like, it really just depends. And so when you first go to a CrossFit gym, like, find like the 3 to 5 CrossFit gyms that are closest to you and try each one of them out. Like see, like you'll be able to tell like with the different coaching, like not all CrossFit gyms are created equal. So that's kind of where I would go with that. But, I think that like it all comes down to the individual coach and the gym. And like making sure as like the athlete coming in that like, look, if you've been sitting on your butt on the couch for the past 5 years not working out, like don't come into that first class and try to be Superman and get in that competitive environment and just go 100% and get injured. You know what I mean? So as far as rhabdo goes, I think that so basically what it is is it's something that occurs. I don't think it's as prevalent as like it used to be, but it's something that definitely did used to happen quite a bit. And really what it is it's something, it's extremely serious. Like it's something that can kind of leave you like literally like in the hospital, with like kidney issues. But the reason why it happens is because people will come in and they'll do a workout that has some type of movement or repetitive movement that they'll do. So for example, this is the one that comes to mind. There's a workout called Murph. Okay. It's what's called like a hero workout. So, Murph was like, somebody that was in the military and he died. And this was like a workout that was like named after him. And so it's 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats per time. And obviously that many reps of a movement, right? Especially for somebody that's deconditioned, that isn't, able to do something like that, they'll actually get something like, they'll get rhabdo, and it can leave them in the hospital. And it's definitely pretty serious for sure.
Yeah.
I've never even heard of that term before. So can we break it down? What is it? Like, it's a physical injury. How would it lead to kidney damage? I'm confused.
So honestly, I mean, I definitely don't claim to be like a rhabdomyolysis expert here. But yeah, I mean, it's like, it's truly just something that like it happens from over exercising, especially doing like it's being an idiot, really. Like it's not something that's just going to happen to anybody. It's going to happen to somebody that, maybe does a workout like Murph, like I just mentioned, on 4th of July or Labor Day or Memorial Day or whatever, and then they go and they just like drink all weekend, right? Mm-hmm. They're like deconditioned, and then they go put all this alcohol in their body. Like, I mean, it's like extreme cases like that, but it's definitely something to, be aware of. It's definitely something that, can cause issues. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're pretty a little on the spot with that, but it's basically like it's like an extreme breakdown in muscle tissue, and then the tissue, I forget, it releases, I think, myoglobin or something into the bloodstream, which causes intense fatigue, soreness, pain, like a feeling like you can't do anything, blood in the urine, and it's not fun. But yeah, I think that's it. It's like I think for most people, it's really overtraining in an under.
I like Justin's his definition. It's being an idiot.
Well, yeah, basically is, yeah.
I mean, it's definitely like it's not going to be something that like, you know, like for instance, like if I was somebody that had never heard of CrossFit before and like I heard about this and like there was any mention of it, like if I was just trying to go exercise and like, you know, do something good for my life and I heard, you know, the symptoms or like potential risk of like it would scare the death out of me.
Yeah.
So like I want it to seem like it's something that like happens all the time. Like I think it's somewhere around, it's like less than like 200,000 like cases like per year like reported.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it really is it's something that like you really kind of did to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that it's the coach's job and it's that gym's job to educate their members on what rhabdo is from the very beginning, like, and make sure that they, you know, obviously coach those athletes and scale those athletes appropriately.
Yeah, I think it's like the perfect storm of kind of you know, the kind of no pain no gain mentality, the, you know, the actual, you know, with CrossFit, the idea, you know, because you know there are certain kind of goals either for time or repetitions or both, and then people maybe, you know, especially a lot, you know, not great coaching, and not letting somebody know that you need to listen to your body. It's kind of, that like perfect storm of things that happens. And then all of a sudden you got people who are, you know, a couple weeks in and they're just like, I see it I teach, you know, kickboxing and boxing. And, you know, one of the biggest things that, you know, the first thing I tell people when they join is like, look, you're going to love this. You're going to have a great time, but start off with one class a day, you know, do that for a while. If you're okay with one class a day, then maybe try, you know, a second class, because otherwise there are people that will stay for 5-6 hours in a day, just training over and over and over. And they'll do that for like a week or two. And then all of a sudden they disappear, because just overtraining is really easy when you're in an environment that you enjoy. And so, yeah, kind of like it's incumbent on like the coaches. And I definitely, it seems like it's a lot less common and you don't hear about it nearly as much now, that I think there's far more competent coaching. And I think just CrossFit, you know, as you talked about, the barrier to entry is lower. And I just think, you know, kind of as an organization, you know, if one of the knocks against you is that people get injured all the time, you kind of have to curb that. And I think it's definitely been much better over the last few years. You don't hear nearly as much about people kind of getting hurt and dealing with kind of symptoms of overtraining and or rhabdo.
Yeah, and it also sounds like it's a lack of self-care in what you're doing outside of the gym, like recovery and nutrition, which is so important, especially at that higher intensity level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it you know, like those same people are probably like not getting enough sleep, like they're probably like not doing like mobility, not eating right, they're probably drinking too much alcohol, you know, but, you know, going back to your question, like on some of the symptoms and stuff, like when I have heard of it, like, I mean, it's basically like, you know, you'll see it like in your urine, you'll have like crazy, like muscle pain and weakness. Like sometimes like you'll even be like throwing up. And so, yeah, it's like when you get it, like you definitely know, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Dude, Justin, you are awesome. You know, like so much really cool stuff. And thanks for coming on the Gym. Where can we find you?
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Have you ever considered having your own podcast? Do you have your own podcast?
Well,
you'd be great at it.
Well, thank you. No, we actually are launching the iCoach podcast here in 2019.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm definitely pretty excited for it. But yeah, as far as where people can find me, like I said, I own a company, an online coaching, nutrition coaching company called iCoach Nutrition. So you can find us on Instagram at that, on Facebook at that, and iCoachNutrition.com is the website. And then my own personal account on Instagram is probably like where I'm at the most. That's just Justin Murphy _iCoach.
Put it in the show notes.
Awesome. Yeah, we will definitely put it in the show notes. All right, I'm gonna turn on the camera now. Just you know, I often don't do that, just for our listeners, so we could send Justin off, who's been such a great guest. So, Justin, thanks for coming on the Gymwits. It was a great discussion, and you're welcome back anytime.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
It's funny, Ryan. It's hard. You can't really hide it, but you don't really like CrossFit, and it comes out. It comes out. So the question is, have you been sort of lightening or loosening your disdain for CrossFit?
I'm not. I don't have disdain for CrossFit. I think my prejudice towards CrossFit really does stem a lot from that initial issue of kind of poor coaching, and I think that there was a time. It's not the same anymore. But CrossFit people were kind of douchebags. Like, there was a time where lot. No. I'm not saying that's current. I think that there was a time where you could see online, some of the funniest kind of memes, especially in the early days of that being really a big thing online, were about CrossFitters because they were kind of douchey about it and in your face, and they were going to tell you that they did CrossFit and you were going to know. And I just don't think it's the same anymore. And I think there's value in the community, and as long as the coaching is good. It's great. I think my issue more stems from kind of, it's the same as my issue with any modality that makes claims that maybe or maybe it's not great for, and so it's and I don't think it's the same as it was, 5, 6, 7 years ago. So, again, I'm not disdain towards it. It's more just know what you're doing, but that would apply to anything. And I definitely don't feel like CrossFit people are as kind of douchey as they used to be. Although I will say one thing, I have a few CrossFit friends, the earlier CrossFit friends who at least 5 people. I swear, if you don't believe me, I will point them all out on Facebook to you. That all talked up about, oh, you don't get injured doing CrossFit. If anyone gets injured doing it, it's because they're doing it wrong. Blah blah blah. Every single one of them have had some kind of a major knee or hip surgery. 2 had hip replacement, 2 had major knee surgeries, and the other one had a hip, another kind of hip labrum tear, which is a serious injury. And I'm not saying it was their use of the CrossFit at the time, but it seemed interesting to me that they all kind of had that thing in common. But I don't hate CrossFit, so don't
all right,
no hate now.
A yay or nay for you guys and for us. Does Ryan hate CrossFit? Yay. No. I'm sure Tony will abstain from the voting, and Ryan will say
no. I didn't say it's bad. It's
so say
bad.
Nay.
Yay.
Okay, you said yay, right?
Yay, if you want to do it.
I told you. You admitted.
If you want to do it, sure.
All right. So, I think that's it for today. You have anything to add, Tone?
Nope, just hope you're still staying healthy in 2019.
Yeah. Well, let's. Where can people find you? And your program?
So if you're interested in working with me one-on-one, you go to www.tipswithtony.com/coaching. You can apply to work with me. We'll set up a call, make sure you're a good fit for the program, and that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, you can message me on Instagram, tips_with_Tony with an I, or you can join my free Facebook support group on Facebook, Tips with Tony.
Cool. All right. Well, that's it. As usual, all of our stuff can be found at thegymwits.com. And that's it. All of our social media, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all that good stuff. So I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, a.k.a. Chef Sonic, reminding you that truth does not sell.
And I'm Tony Marinici, a.k.a. Tips with Tony, a registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.
And we are the Gymwits.